situations. So if it worked before, it should still work fine. If it didn't work before, then it might work now. There's some stuff that didn't work as a result of those. One of which is the a very excellent carnival fishing game that was submitted to our weekly contest a couple weeks ago. That one was having an issue where it was preventing it from working on the live grid. So that's one of the things that we wanted to fix. But it affects a variety of other applications as well. And being able to reach out and how is vSync supposed to help with science-based performance? vSync is not really a performance feature as such. The point of vSync is to help prevent frame tearing. If the frame rate is synchronized with the refresh rate of your monitor, then experience, especially at lower frame rates, you experience less tearing of the frames where it looks like a frame is halfway loaded when another frame starts loading. It makes it visually a better experience. It's not necessarily going to boost your streams are recorded on other server scripts. I don't know how you have that set up, so I can't really comment on the particular scripting there. But if it was working fine before, it should still be working fine now. Feel free to test it after office hours here. Roll over and see if it's still working. And if you're having problems with it, let us know. Like I said, there are further patches coming to the region server, and there may even be a temporary rollback. And then we'll redeploy it again, a less frenzied state. But we'll see how that goes. Something I've been asked to talk about is on the Discord, we have a set of testing channels. One of those channels is the Alphas channel, and the primary use of that channel is whenever we build a new editor pack, which happens very frequently, sometimes multiple times a day, then it automatically gets posted and made available on that Alphas channel on the Discord. However, it is important to know that these are not production-ready editor packs. In the past, we had these channels locked behind a specific testing role on Discord where you had to ask us to gain access to these nightly builds, specifically because we wanted to limit how far and wide the people were using these test editor packs, because they are they're the bleeding edge. They're even earlier than what you would call we call the channel alphas, but sometimes they're even earlier than that. Like, they're experimental, really. Oftentimes these editor packs contain like R&D type stuff that's not ready for prime time. Oftentimes new features get added to them which don't work properly, or are supported in the editor pack but not supported in the viewer yet because it requires a viewer update. There's a lot of things that come out in those alpha nightly editor packs, and it's something that you should only use if you understand going in that this is very likely to be a buggy, broken editor pack, and know that. And so, we try to fix those as fast as possible. But the official live supported editor packs are the ones that you can get from the Unity Asset Store. That version that's up there is the one that we consider our public release editor pack, and the one that most people should be using unless you have a very specific reason. Alpha editor packs, and even if you use the alpha editor packs, we're not guaranteeing that those are 100% functional or 100% supported, because again, those are experimental for a reason. We make them available because oftentimes there is situations arise where somebody needs a very specific feature that's been put into a newer editor pack since the one that's live, and so we can point at it. We're going to talk about whether among the staff, we'll be talking about whether it makes sense to close that channel off again behind a permission role, and whether it makes sense to gate access to it again in the future, just because it is causing a lot of support issues with people who see that and go, oh, this is newer than the one I have, I should download it and install it. And that's not usually a good idea. So that channel may be restricted in the future, and to get access to it, we'll need to make sure you understand that. We'll probably have some kind of boilerplate explanation, like this is what you're getting, this is the disclaimer that we're putting on this, and you're going to need to have a reason to, like I specifically need this from the editor pack. I hate to do that, but it takes a lot of our time from our support staff, who are trying to diagnose issues and support creators. It shouldn't be supporting necessarily an experimental alpha build that the developers put out there that is not meant to be ready for prime time, without a good reason to do so. So that our policy around that may change later. Yeah, the viewer version, the viewer is officially our live viewer is the one that's on sign.space/download. We do have another viewer at preview.sign.space.download, and this is our release candidate. This is where we put the viewer that we expect to go out live next. That doesn't mean it's 100%. We put it up there on preview. We're like, okay, we think this is close. We're going to do some more rigorous testing. We start rolling out the patch notes on this. There may still be some extra patches that have to go into that if problems are discovered in that release candidate. But yeah, you can use the live viewer, you can use the preview viewer, with the understanding that, again, it's still a beta, it's not 100% live, so there may be an issue that you need to report. We also have another viewer you can get from staging.sign.space/download. This one we don't typically recommend unless you need access to it for some reason. You're welcome to it, but it's more like where we put our works in progress. So staging is basically alpha, preview is basically beta, and then the main website, the live website, sign.space, is where the current release viewer is. And that's important to note along with the editor pack is viewers also are in various stages. Like I just outlined, we have alpha, beta, and release viewers, and so depending on which one of those you're on, you may experience more bugs or unfinished features, things that are works in progress. So if you come to us with an issue with the editor pack or the viewer, we do look at those bug reports, we do fix them, but they may be fixed in a unreleased viewer that's coming out later. They may be fixed in an unreleased editor pack that's coming out later. And even if we fix a specific bug and it goes into a nightly editor pack, there may be other issues with that editor pack. So you may be trading one bug for another if you decide to move up immediately to a nightly build. So just very much beware when you're using non-release products. If you're using a non-release editor pack or a non-release viewer, then those are not guaranteed way to be completely functional and bug free. Even our live stuff often has bugs that we discover and have to fix in it. But the alpha and beta versions especially are often works in progress. Scrolling up here looking for other questions. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the assembly chat. 1B viewers cannot see 2B viewers dancing and even vehicles and vice versa. I find 1B49 in general the best. There's been some changes made in the 2B viewers that you will notice when working with people in 1B viewers or even in slightly older 2B viewers. some bugs to fix them requires uh, not necessarily being fully backwards compatible. For example, in the seats in the last like 3 or 4 2B viewers, to fix a bunch of bugs that were seat related, we had to change the way seats identify themselves when seats are put into a region, either as furniture or built in directly to the region. They get a unique identifier code, and that way, when I sit down, it tells your viewer, hey, Joshua has sat down on this seat with this unique identifier code, and that way all the other viewers can look at their region and go, oh, that's the seat he's talking about. I'll put him over there. Um, in order to fix some bugs, we had to change the way 2B viewers identify a lot of seats, and so um, if somebody's on a 1B viewer and somebody's on a 2B viewer, they're not necessarily going to see each other sitting correctly in the correct seat in the correct place, just because the 2B viewer calls the seat by one name and the 1B viewer calls the same seat by a different name, which was actually the problem all along. Is the 1B series viewers and some of the older 2B series viewers were inconsistent about what they named. So the same seat could have different names even within the same viewer series, and so that was one of the bugs that was meant to address. Yeah, and that's an issue that's unfortunately we're just going to have to push out the 2B viewer and get everybody on the 2B viewer in order to fix that. That there's not really an interim solution to that. But again, that's the one of the hazards of using an unreleased viewer is, there are sometimes changes like this that aren't fully backwards compatible. It doesn't require any changes to the seats themselves. It's just putting that out there. You don't need to re-upload seats. You don't need to do anything like that. It's just purely down to a viewer issue. So the viewer itself is not backwards compatible, but the furniture, the regions are all fine. You don't need to do any of those. Yeah, racing is something we're working on, and vehicles are an ongoing thing that we're working on right now as well. There is some issues with vehicles. Sometimes you'll not see a person in their vehicle if you join the region afterwards. That's still something that I have on my list to fix, hopefully soon. It's been a very very busy last 2 weeks for everybody. We've got we could use twice as many people on staff to handle what we're doing right now. So we are uh, all a little sleep deprived and running on like 10 pots of coffee a day at the moment. But we're hoping that we're over that hump now and things start to slow down a little bit, and we can work on some of the latent issues we had on our list for the last couple of weeks. I also something I just want to address that was brought up at the last town hall. Um, Community events tab, the enter button not working there. I did look into that after the office hours last week. The fix turns out to be surprisingly simple. The issue was that most of the events just had the region name incorrectly on them, and that was the reason the enter button didn't work. So, like events at the 381 Club, for example, the event was that it was at 381 Club instead of the 381 Club, and that was the reason the enter button didn't work. Same with the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center is spelled Center, CNTRE, and the event calendar had it as CNTR. And so that's the reason the enter button wasn't taking people to the Welcome Center, is just because the region names weren't exactly matching the actual region name. So I think we've corrected most of those now. We corrected most of them the last Wednesday, and we'll keep an eye on that going forward. But if you see if you see an event and you click enter and nothing happens, most likely that means that the region name is not exactly matching the actual region it's supposed to go to. So same thing with office hours. is it was listed as assembly region when it's supposed to be the assembly, and so it's just, if it's not an exact match, the enter button doesn't do anything. We should really probably have like a pop-up warning or something that tells you why it's not doing anything. But it does work as long as whoever builds the event listing actually puts the right region name. Racing the controls while driving feel clunky. Yeah, we're aware of that. The controls. Well, first of all, the how clunky or difficult to drive a car is really depends on the car itself. There's 100 different variables you can change on the vehicles to tune how they react. Friction, forward friction, sideways friction, slippage, the torque, the angular drag, the forward drag, the center of gravity, and the center of gravity can go up, down, forward, side to side. Number of wheels, which wheels are driving, which wheels are steering, how much they steer, how fast they steer. There's just so many things you can dial in on the vehicles. But we do want to update the controls. One of the things that particularly annoys me about them is um, the forward and back keys apply forward and back torque, but that's not really intuitive to the way most people play racing games right now. To explicitly like if you're going forward and you want to brake, you have to hit the space bar. If you hit the back button, that doesn't brake. That applies reverse torque, which is not the same thing. So we want to change it so that if you're going forward and you press back, it applies the brakes instead, and vice versa. If you're going backward and you press forward, then the brakes get applied instead, and then that reverse torque doesn't come in until you actually have come to a stop and then start backing up. And that's the way most driving games do it. It's intuitive. Most people expect that. So we want to adjust some of the controls to where they're more, let's say, industry. Somebody was mentioning about scripts on vehicles. There are a couple different vehicle scripts out there. There's the older set of car vehicle, boat vehicle, hover vehicle, that kind of thing. There was a bunch of independent scripts, and those are essentially all deprecated. They're in there so that anything using those scripts is still supported and still works the way that it always did. But the one that we're working on and adding new features to and that sort of thing is actually the modular vehicle script, which can do all of that. You can put a modular vehicle component on a vehicle, and that vehicle can have any number of wheels, any number of hover points, any number of standard forces. Like if you're making a spaceship or something, and you just want to have thruster power going in different directions. That, and you can even mix and match that. You can have a vehicle that has wheels and hover points if you want to, for some reason. I'm not sure how well that would work out, but go for it. That's where all of the vehicle improvements are going to be. If you're using a vehicle that's based on the old systems, the old vehicles from a couple of years ago, those may not necessarily get any improvements or changes that we're talking about adding into the system. We're basically focused on modular vehicle one. As I said, the other ones are legacy and are just left in there so we don't break anything, as we never want to break content. Yeah, all vehicles essentially work the same. The controls are determined by the viewer, and they're set up in such a way because we want them to be usable cross-platform. So rather than having scripters have to decide, how do I do forward, back, reverse, brake, that kind of stuff, we just have standardized hooks to get in there, and then we do the work of deciding what triggers those hooks on particular platforms. So the scripts should be consistent from vehicle to vehicle. The controls should be consistent from vehicle to vehicle. But yeah, some really old vehicles will be left behind a bit if those creators aren't updating those into the new modular vehicle system. There are some basic driving instructions when you sit down in a vehicle. I think in chat or somewhere a little pop-up comes up and says, here's basically how you can move the vehicle, WASD or arrow keys or whatnot, some standard stuff. But the other thing is vehicles may have vehicle-specific features on them, like what the HUD looks like on a vehicle, what the cameras, how the cameras work, any other features, if the creator wants to add turn signals to it, or have a built-in radio or something, or jump jets, or whatever the creator feels like putting in there in their vehicle. The standard driving controls are going to be the same across all vehicles, but any special features that the creator wants to put in there, can't necessarily predict what that is, and that's up to the creator to explain that when they sell the vehicle or when you use the vehicle for the first time or whatever. And we do have we've got a guy working on an updated version of the old racing system. The old racing system was done a long, long time ago, probably 3 years ago now, at least. And there was a lot of features that that Sciencebase just didn't support back then. So, one of those things being server-side scripting wasn't around then. Even the client-side scripting wasn't as advanced as it is now. So he's redoing that using all the modern features that we have now that we've added over the last few years. And it's going to result in a much nicer, much more stable system, and it's going to have a lot more cool features in it. So it should be a lot more fun, a lot more functional, and we'll be dialing in the cars. Specifically addressing bugs and control issues with the cars, in part to roll out with that new update. What about the cars do you particularly find extremely difficult to use, Alicia? And again, that's going to, depending on the problem, like some cars, I've driven some cars that are almost completely uncontrollable. And then you get into a different car, it uses the same controls, but it feels very nice to drive because the suspension's different. The performance and handling characteristics of the cars have been dialed in better. I actually had that problem with one of my own cars I uploaded. I had to adjust the collider in it, and when I re-uploaded it, it went from being a car that was great to drive and easy to control and everything to being almost completely uncontrollable just because its center of gravity had changed off due to having a different collider on them. Extremely difficult to turn and brake. Braking is just pressing the space bar. Turning is entirely vehicle specific. It's going to depend on which particular car you're talking about. Turning is just, as I said, everything to do with turning is about that particular car, not the vehicle system in general. There's a lot of factors that go into turning. Grip, the distribution of the car's weight, how fast the wheels turn, how far the wheels turn, how big the wheel collider's tires are. There's just a lot of things that go into making a car handle well. And if you just take a generic car script and throw a body on it and put it up there, and it's not dialed in for that body and it's not set up for that car well, then yeah, it's going to be awful to drive. But that's not a factor of the vehicle system itself. Because even like the braking, each individual car gets to decide how good their brakes are, which tires have brakes. Does the forward wheels have better brakes? Does the back wheels have better brakes? All of that stuff is very car specific, and is not the vehicle system. It's whoever built that specific car didn't do a great job of building that specific car. There's kind of an art to building vehicles in the virtual world, just like there is in the real world, because when it comes to all the physics at play and making them work well, there's a lot to know and a lot to play with. So if you have a specific car that you've tried, I can look at it, but again, if it's not a car that we made, if it's not a car that I made, then it's just something you're going to have to be able. You have to take to the creator of that vehicle and go, your car needs more work. Um, People having trouble logging into the Welcome Center or some other places. Um, what is her issue? I don't know. If she's having trouble logging into the Welcome Center, one of us needs to get with her and we'll look at her logs, and look at and see if there's anything going on with the server itself at that time. One thing we are experiencing now versus a month ago is the coronavirus, and the issue with that is everybody's at home, everybody's on the internet all the time, everybody's hogging the bandwidth all the time. Um, there's a lot of the network, a lot of the overall internet infrastructure that is at capacity or overloading, um, because it wasn't intended to have this much sustained demand on it. So part of it could be where she is, trying to connect to our servers. She may be in an area that is having bandwidth problems or infrastructure problems, um, and that may just be like a connection issue between her and us, and that would make sense if it started for her specifically over the last month or so. I know like a lot of governments have started asking places like Netflix and YouTube and Disney Plus and such to stop offering high def content. Like a lot of places in Europe now, if you go to watch Netflix, you only get 720p or 480p. You get 1080 because that uses too much bandwidth, and they've throttled everyone back. I know Steam, for example, has um, said that they're no longer going to automatically update any games that you haven't played in the last 3 days. So if you've got 100 games installed, it's only going to upload the 3 or 4 that you've played recently. It's not going to bother updating the rest anymore. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's going on, where companies are having to pull back on the amount of bandwidth they allow everyone to use, and is so high, and during this sustained peak that we have, people may be experiencing additional difficulties connecting, especially if they're far away from the server or if they're in dense uh, urban areas with lots of high usage. So that's going to be something that we will have to specifically address with her. Like she's welcome to contact us, and we'll see what we can to diagnose her specific connection problems. But I suspect, given the timing and given that nobody else seems to be having any problems consistently logging in, that probably just in an area where her internet infrastructure is overloaded and she has to try a couple times to get through the blockade. Another question about cars in here. Do you guys plan to put a way to flip a car over if it goes upside down? Well, again, um, that's on the car designer. There's a lot of mechanisms in the car system already to help prevent that. Like cars, um, part of that is how you design the car's collider. If you design it with a flat top collider, then if it lands on the flat top, it might be stuck there. If you designed it where the collider is got a curve to it, then it can naturally have a tendency to roll back over onto its wheels. That really is up to how the car designer, the person who made that particular car, wants it to perform. There's actually a setting in the car system where you can give it um, a certain amount of self-righting force. That can be zero, and the car will just never attempt to right itself. It could be a super high force in which the car will always flip over because it's got such a high amount of force. It'll just overcome any obstacle and flip itself back over. Most cars are somewhere in between, where if you get them up onto their side or partway onto their roof or something, they'll roll back over as long as their collider's designed well. Again, that's a car specific issue, not necessarily an issue with the vehicle system. Looking for other questions here. If I missed any, please feel free to ask them again, because they sometimes get lost in the conversation here. if I don't know if anybody here is a car maker or is wants to become one, but we definitely encourage people to play with that more and give us feedback on the system. We're always happy to take feedback into account when we're updating that. Let's see. I don't see any current questions coming in, so if anybody plan to add a way to fix where your car is if it gets stuck on a track, that's a track specific problem. The new racing system that we have coming out does have out of bounds colliders. So if your car goes off the track, then you have the option of having an invisible barrier there that when the car runs into it, resets them back to their last successfully passed checkpoint. That's something that is being designed into the new modular racing system. If you get on a specific track, if you go off the track and like get your car stuck down the bottom of a ravine or something, I mean that's up to the track designer. The track designer can have it set up so that going into that ravine is considered out of bounds and resets you back on. But that's just entirely going to be up to the person who designed the track, whether they want that to be out of the race or to reset you or to force you to get out of your car and climb back up and get back into your car or something like that. There's a lot of ways around that, but yeah, that's a track issue more than a vehicle issue.
You don't mind me saying this game reminds me a lot of the Oasis.
The science base as a whole, or the particular region? I'm not sure what you're comparing to there.
Oh, from the movie Ready Player One, there was this thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, actually haven't seen that yet. I keep meaning to watch it, but I was waiting for it to come out on streaming. It might be now. I'm not sure, but yeah, I've seen the trailers. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean that is the Oasis or Ready Player One is kind of yeah. Shame on me for not having seen it. Right? It should be a staple. I'll have to fix that. But no, Ready Player One is somebody taking the idea of current virtual worlds and the current state of virtual reality and imagining what it could be like in 10 or 20 years, you know. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised it reminds you a lot of it because that's where it came from is places like Science Base and Second Life and all these other places that have been doing the pushing virtual reality, pushing virtual worlds to the limit of what the current tech can handle, and people looking at that and going, "Huh, where are we going to be in 10 years? We could all be in the Oasis in 10 years." You know, that is kind of the ultimate goal.
Yeah,
we're not ready there yet. Our virtual reality tech isn't quite that good yet.
Yeah, but this is a great job. This is amazing what y'all did right here.
Thank you. It's a work in progress, like all things are when it comes to the tech world. But we're doing as much as we can to make as much creative potential possible. And we like to show people what's possible with it, with the things that we make. But really the real potential of this comes out when creators around the world come in and recognize that potential and use their talents to create something amazing for everybody to experience. And so really our goal here is to be the facilitator of other people's experiences, more rather than just giving everybody our own interpretation of it. We want to see everybody's interpretation of it.
Yeah, totally get that.
Kind of what the Oasis is. You can go in there and everybody looks like whatever they want to. You can have whatever experience you want to, and so yeah, hopefully everybody gets something out of that, and I would love to continue seeing amazing creations coming out of this for decades to come, and maybe if we're still around in 10 or 20 years, which I don't see why we wouldn't be. We keep advancing our technology as technology allows. Engine technology comes out, we jump on it. When new hardware technology comes out, we jump on it. So, if a full body immersive VR experience comes out and becomes possible for the average user, it doesn't cost $50,000, then per person to set up, then that's technology we'd be looking to integrate into ScienceBase. So who knows? Maybe ScienceBase will be the Oasis in 10, 20 years.
Hopefully.
I see some questions coming in here. In regions in the shop, okay, that's a question I think somebody answered. Yeah. How do you guys plan on making the creation process seamless and simple for people who don't have experience with Unity? Well, that's a complicated question. We've already greatly simplified the Unity part of it. In many ways, building something for ScienceBase is much easier than building something for Unity in general, and that's in large part due to the fact that we provide all the infrastructure, and then we provide a ton of tools to accomplish really quite powerful tasks without having to know how to do coding or anything like that. All of the 400 odd components that we include in our SDK, things like just make this clickable, just make this a seat, just make this, something that happens when an avatar gets too close to this. All those things are things you'd normally have to script yourself in Unity, and we just have a component up on there. So we've already brought down the bar quite a lot for creating content inside Unity itself. We do want to have more content creation inside the viewer itself. That's something that's on our roadmap. We're just kind of tentatively calling it resources at the moment, and that's the ability to upload things like animations, textures, sound effects, things like that directly through the viewer without having to open Unity. And those would just appear in your inventory as like, oh, this is an animation resource and this is a resource, and then you can use those or a mesh resource, those to pull things in the viewer. We've got some systems coming out that would make heavy use of those. We have one of the systems we'd like to do is offer the ability for you almost kind of crafting where you could say, yeah, there's this really cool sofa in the store, for example, and but I've got an idea that needs a sofa, and I've got an idea that needs a table, and I've got an idea that needs this lava lamp over here, and I want the ability to take those things, put them together, change the animations, change the sound effects, add some lights, whatever you're going to do to that, because the room editor already has the ability to add like new components to things, like making things that were clickable that weren't before, adding lights to things, and so we have the foundation of that. Build things through the room editor experience, and there's more coming to that, including some in-world mesh creation tools that we're looking at, so you can just create stuff, like new objects from scratch in world. All of that is stuff that we're working on. Some of it's in now, some of it's accessible now, some of it is there but disabled pending other things because it's not useful on its own. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, a lot of built through the viewer creation tools that we are working on or will be working on to facilitate people just to connect to ScienceBase directly, make stuff, repurpose stuff, and then back up on the store, use it however makes sense to you. Buying a house defeats the purpose of giving members a free home. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Our default home, or a previous default home, is now for sale in the shop, is what she's saying, as opposed to giving it away like we used to. That was her question.
The old one or the current one?
The old one. Some people like the old one. It works better for them. So they're trying to switch out.
Oh, okay. I mean, they can switch out. So the complaint is that one are we charging for the old one? Is that the issue?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know what decision went into that. Yeah. If we can review that whether it makes sense, but fundamentally we want everybody to have an access to a free region and a free house when they connect in, so that they can immediately start decorating and have a place to go and bring their friends and that sort of thing. We don't necessarily guarantee you a wide selection of them. You know, when you press the home button, you get the free one. If you want a particular one, if you want the old one, yeah, in term that's going to be a policy thing, that decision that I'll discuss with management and see if it makes sense for us to offer specifically our older one for free or not. But there's no guarantees on that. It's you get the one you get, and if you want another one, there's more in the store. I understand that people who've been around for a while may specifically want the older one, which if you've been around long enough to have seen the older one, to have had the older one, that should be in your inventory still, so you shouldn't have to rebuy it. The new one you're saying is useless to you because cannot walk properly in the new one. Why can you not walk properly in the new one? What is preventing you from walking in the new one? I walk in the new one all the time. Is there some specific problem with that? You drunk walk? Well, but like, is there something preventing you from walking, or you just find it confusing to navigate, or you run into walls a lot? Your camera's not in a place that's, you know, um, you watched and have no explanation for it. I'm more than happy to help you with that. If you want to, show me your house, I can watch you walk in it, and you cannot walk in a straight line. That shouldn't have anything to do with the house itself, but I'm more than happy to look into that. Um, we'll need to arrange a time where you and I can go to your house and I can watch you drunk walk, and yeah, I see. I haven't. I've been in many of those homes. I've got one myself on live and preview because that's where I do a lot of testing. Because it's just what comes up when I hit a new home. I've never had a problem walking in them. I don't know anybody else who's had a problem walking in them. I walk straight fine. So if you're drunk walking specifically your home, have you gone to other people's houses? Do you drunk walk in other people's houses? My thought is there's maybe something else in the region. You were in one this morning that wasn't yours and you were still drunk walking. Okay. I'm gonna have to look into that. Yeah, do other people drunk walk in the region when you're there? Um, if not, yeah, that's a weird one. Like I said, well, let's arrange a time. Um, I will go to one of these houses with you, or you can pop into mine or whatever, and I will watch you drunk walk and see if I can figure out what's causing that. It sounds to me like, without seeing it, that there may be something that's overriding your animation controller, but I don't know why it would be just you and just in that region. That's something I'll have to look into. How do you guys plan to make rotating and moving objects more simple if you own them? Do you mean like in the room editor? Because that's already pretty simple. You just click on them and little gizmos come up to move them around or rotate them, and you can manually type in positions and rotations if you want to as well. So I'm not sure what you mean by making it easier to rotate things around. You can give me a specific example, then let me know. Chrissy's saying all of her games are dead, or you're saying you can't connect to those, or nobody's in them. I don't know. All right. Yeah, Jamie, let's sort that out. Let's just send me a message, and we'll wander over there and have a look at it and see what your issue is. I've never heard of that happening to anybody else in any region. Definitely not that one. Yes, Alicia, we are planning mesh creation tools built into the viewer. We've got a couple of candidates in mind. We'd like to support both of them. It's just a matter, well, we actually have like 3 or 4 in mind. It's just a matter of which ones we're going to do first. We'll talk more about that as we get in there. There's some really cool ones out there that let you just build stuff in a variety of different ways. Just straight in the room editor. They're actually really cool. Some of them are working right now, but you may not have seen them. Some of them are ways to manipulate existing mesh, but we are definitely going to have, yeah, there will be tutorials when we get those tools deployed. Like I said, there's going to be 2 or 3 of them at least. We think we know which one we're going to do first, and we'll be talking more about that when we get that to a point where we can put it on at least the staging server and actually start building stuff. We'll definitely we'll have videos. We'll talk about it here at the office hours. There'll be blog posts about it. Trust me, you won't miss it. Looking at other questions here, we're probably going to wrap up pretty soon here because Adam's nagging me to do he wants to do another patch deploy to the region server. I asked him to hold off until we were done here. I didn't want everybody to be disconnected in the middle. So if anyone's got any questions, throw a couple more at me and I'll answer a couple more, and then we'll wrap this up. Yeah, sounds like a request from Snowtrax to have a deeper explanation of what all of the vehicle tuning controls actually do, so when people get in there, they're not confronted with just 100 different options and they're not sure what to do with it. Definitely some better vehicle building tutorials would be super useful to have. I noticed the ones that we had on the wiki recently are quite out of date. And that's something we're actually working on right now, is we're updating our documentation. So yeah, new vehicle building tutorials definitely needed. How one setting affects the other settings, that is a very, I mean, we're gonna need somebody with a physics degree to explain all of that, I think. But yeah, we can give you a general idea of what you can expect the vehicle to do when you change one setting versus another. There's a lot to it. I mean, even just changing simple things like, you know, each individual wheel can have the custom friction settings on it, and there's like 4 different friction settings for each wheel, and for forward, and then 4 different ones for sideways friction. And what each of those does is very complex and interplayed, and even just changing a few of those numbers, even just a little bit, can have, you know, on just wheel friction can change how fast you accelerate, how fast you brake, how well the car can turn. You know, just changing one number with you know, altering the friction a little bit on the wheel. It's very complicated. There's a reason, you know, people can build their entire careers around, you know, fine tuning race cars and stuff. Will Sinewave have the mesh creation tools maintain a low poly / high quality creation that Unity Engine is already capable of? Not really sure what you mean by that. Unity Engine is capable of everything from super simple low poly, no special effects, all the way up to AAA, you know, all the bells and whistles, post effects, high poly, you know, 4K textures, all that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, it's down to the creator to decide what they're going for. If you're asking, like, how that will mesh with our review process, like if somebody makes an in-world mesh item, probably That's one of the things we're working out, but probably it would have to go through a review process before, for example, it was allowed on the store or anything like that. Um, and we may have other restrictions on it as well. Because again, yeah, we don't want something spoiling the experience. So it would be it would still have to go through a review process before it was able to be distributed. Like we wouldn't let you give it to people or go on the store or things like that. There's a lot to work out in regards to that, and we don't want people to be able to come in here and use world creation tools, to violate intellectual property laws, things like that. Somebody comes in here and finds a Mickey Mouse or something using the in world tools. We don't want them to just be able to put that out there because that's IP, not ours and not theirs. So yeah, anything that was made with those in-world tools would still have to be subject to some kind of review process. And our review process does cover things like this is too high poly for what it is, or this is going to cause viewer problems, or this has malicious scripting in it, or this has particles on it that cover the entire region, and that's annoying. So we're not going to let that through. So a lot of stuff gets taken into account in our review process, and we absolutely would have to review those in-world creations as well. Yeah, the virus is it's killing everyone right now, and figuratively and literally, unfortunately, in terms of internet services, everybody is just swamped and doing their best to bail water out of the boat to keep all the services up. Mostly it's the internet backbone, but a lot of websites are seeing way more demand than they ever did in the past, and their systems weren't necessarily designed to scale up for a sudden surge in demand like that. Honestly, though, the internet's handled it pretty well so far, all things considered. I'm actually quite impressed with how well everything has stood up to the demand. It's just not just our system, but the internet as a whole globally. It's still here. It's still going.
Yeah, I've noticed it over the last couple of weeks where I've got a really, really fast fibre connection, and it in the evening time for me downloading stuff takes ages. There's definitely a difference.
Yeah, it's just saturation. It's just there's so much demand right now. So yeah, it's we're all doing the internet's doing the best it can right now in terms of keeping everybody online way more than it ever needed to in the past, and doing remarkably well. But there's going to be some side effects of that: slower downloads, potentially higher ping times, packet loss, services that get tested, just like an internet freeway, too much traffic on it, and you get a traffic jam, and that's going to happen sometimes.
Nah,
So
it's not, Alicia. I'm not very often affected by peak hours on the fibre connection. It's just lots of people on the internet at the moment.
yeah. So we'll do what we can. I think we're gonna wrap it up there, just because Adam is itching to do a server deploy here, and he wants to fix some more bugs. So yeah, everybody have a great day. Expect the server to go all the servers on live to go down for a few minutes shortly after this office call, because we'll be deploying a new version of the server out. But that's what we're doing here. We're still here. We're still developing. We're still fixing bugs and adding features. So that's going to happen from time to time. And if anybody, I want to put out there that you can ask questions outside of office hours too. This is a great tool for everybody to come here and just have a discussion about things that are going on. But you're also more than welcome. If you have a specific issue, especially a specific issue that's preventing you from using the system, like Jamie's having an issue preventing him from using the house, reach out to us if you're not getting if you're not getting the support you need, then it can be escalated up. I'm around pretty much all the time. Nothing else to do because I can't be there. So you can reach out on Discord. You can I think I'm just Joshua on the Science-Based Discord. So feel free to reach out. I will answer as many questions as I can. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee you an immediate response, but I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can, because sometimes I might be in the middle of doing something. But yeah, feel free to reach out and ask questions at other times as well. And in the meantime, everybody take care. And I think we're going to turn the stream off there. Thanks, everybody.